So check this out. This is what happened. Sofia Zappi came to do a podcast. She came to the studio and we were kind of pressed for time. And I guess I was being hasty because this is a video podcast as well as an audio podcast. But for the video, I didn't hit the correct button on the video program. And I hit the preview button, and the preview also counts time the same way that a recording would. And I guess I just mistook that for it actually recording the video. We didn't record the video, so in this podcast episode you don't get to see Sofia Zappi, which is a shame because she's a very striking woman, and you get to hear her awesome thoughts and learn more about this amazing person. And it's a very interesting episode. It's one of my favorites. She told me that she enjoyed doing the podcast and that she would be back for another episode. And that time we'll get everything right, I promise. And without further ado, here is Sofia Zappi.
This podcast episode is brought to you by nothing.
Try it for free.
Here we have Sofia Zappi with us, and she's one of the most athletic people that I've ever met. No, really, you are. It's impressive.
Thank you.
So, it's I know a few athletic people, very athletic people, and I used to be more athletic than I am now. But I just waned with that. I got depressed or something. I don't know what happened. But what got you into being so athletic? Have you always been that way?
I think when I got, I used to always walk a lot, always walked a lot. Grew up walking with my dad, like through the streets of Sao Paolo. Mm-hmm. He took us swimming and we just walked a lot, long walks. But when I got pregnant with my second kid, with my daughter, I started doing yoga. I got really into that. I guess I could say that it was my kids that got me into things because one day my son wanted to go mountain biking, and for some reason my ex couldn't take him, so I took him and I got totally hooked on it.
Wow.
And then so I started mountain biking and started biking, and then like friends, I could say that my girlfriends got me into trouble. Yeah. Because one girlfriend is like, well, maybe you should run with me, try running with me. Another girlfriend is like, well, now that you're running, why don't you bike with me, or why don't you swim with me? And so I have my girlfriends to thank for, like my friends and kids. Yeah.
Do you have periods where you get lazy, like where you don't want to work out or exercise?
Sometimes I think a few days when I have long days at the hospital, like 12, 13-hour days, and I decide, well, I walked enough or I worked enough. I come home and I lay back, legs up on the couch to relax. If I do 2 or 3 of those days, I actually started getting depressed. Because I think running, climbing, it just makes me happy. Like when I start running, I get in a zone and I don't have to run fast. It's just, you just get on a pace and just start going and listening to music, and just doesn't matter how slow you go. Doesn't matter if you stop to take pictures, if you walk a little bit, you're just looking around. And I feel like when I'm running, I'm finding things. I'm finding inside myself, like looking inside my brain, just realizing things, and just looking outside, looking here, like looking for flowers, different things, crazy plants. And especially out west, when I'm running in the trails, like I see all these animals. Like there was one day I was running, this owl flew by me and landed right next to me. And then I see deer running, they start running with you. If it's a whole pack of them, I don't know if you say pack, but a whole bunch of them, rabbits, all kinds of stuff. So I think that's the beauty of it. And that's why I do it almost every day, because it's my me time. And that's when I get inspired again, or especially after work, that's when I clear everything. And it's like a reset. Because if I come to work and I come home from work and I get home and I'm just sitting there, everything's still spinning in my head, like the day is not done. And I go to bed with that, and it seems like you're just accumulating, and there's no outlet to clear things and start over.
Is your work very physically demanding, or is it more mentally demanding?
It's pretty physically demanding because we run around a lot in Wyoming. We're always short in nurses and aides, CNAs, so we pretty much do everything. Most of the time it's just us and the patients. We don't have any help, so we do everything. So I like it because I'm always on my feet, always not running around, but like you walk a lot. You know, you go to see one patient, another patient. Sometimes to me is stressful, mentally demanding when I feel I don't know what I'm doing, because I'm a new nurse. You know, I've only been doing it for a year, and sometimes I really feel like I have no idea how to take care of that or how to deal with it, or
That's
the person.
That's comforting to know.
No,
if
but
I'm
then I go
ever in
and ask.
Wyoming, if I'm ever in Wyoming and I see you, I'm like,
I do go and ask. I ask a lot. I'm not afraid to ask.
Yeah.
I'm always asking.
yeah, I can imagine. Not everybody's going to be. You can't start off that way. You can't start off knowing everything.
Oh, when I first started, I felt like I knew. I mean, I thought I came out of the school and I'm like, oh, I'm a nurse. And then in my first day started, I'm like, I know nothing.
Yeah.
What do I do here?
Yeah.
So it just comes with practice, you know.
Yeah. So in school, you learn basic.
You learn
things.
basics, you learn science, you learn a lot of ethics in a way, you know, especially here at UNF. The teachers are amazing. UNF, University of North Florida.
Yeah.
They're big on ethics and on documenting everything, on being like honest. It just, you know, you're there for the patients because UNF was very geared towards the community. You know, certain schools are geared towards different things. Like, for example, what is it? University, the one on University Boulevard.
The
private
JU.
one. JU
Yeah.
is very much geared towards emergency. UNF is towards the community. So I feel like they really impart in us this idea that is all for the patient. You know, we're there for them, and for the community, we're doing something for the community. So that was great to learn that and go from there. You know, so that's why when you feel like you don't know, ask. You know, like how can you, and patient advocacy.
There's you know, a lot of people have problems with Western hospitals. How do you find it in there? Are you familiar with the term heroics?
Heroics.
Yeah,
no.
heroics. Okay,
No.
well, a friend of mine was talking to me about the word heroics, that it's a word that's used to describe the kind of medicine that is life-threatening, like somebody's arm gets chopped off and, you know, that kind of thing. So, you know, hospitals are really good for that, you know, and great for that. And, but there's this other, it's been growing for a long time now, this other group of people that are like, Western medicine is just like so dangerous and people can be so careless. And what do you find like in your
It's funny
experience?
because when I was 16, my mother had started doing macrobiotics, you know, which is very traditional way of eating, traditional way of healing through food and teas and, you know, Japanese Eastern medicine. I've done a lot of acupuncture. Most of the time, most of my ailments, things that I had, I treated with acupuncture, diet. To this day, diet is very, very important for me. You know, I try to eat always like whole grains and very few animal products, always like whole grains, vegetables, fruit. Try to keep clean, especially for like running, for doing what I do, just to stay light. To always
And
feel like,
so your parents,
but my parents.
No, go ahead.
But it's funny to work in a hospital now because I feel hospital is not just a place where they chop arms or, you know, where, I mean, hospitals can be, especially where I work now, hospitals can be a haven for people, a place where people seek refuge and sort of a break from normal life or break or refuge to like find yourself and try to recover. If you, for example, if you're addicted to something and you crash, you hit bottom, end up in the hospital. You know, it's a place where you can like, in a way, reprogram, like get away from reality, get away from the forces that are around you, they are bringing you down, and start your own thing, you know, like reprogram, okay, how am I going to do now? What am I going to do to get better? You know, and we're there for them as nurses, and we're happy to talk to them about their life, we talk to them about everything. You know, the stories that we hear from the patients are amazing. And that's why I like working med surg so much, because just you hear incredible stories and sad stories and inspiring stories, and they're amazing people, and a lot of them are just struggling with life, you know. So I feel like hospital is a place where we can help them a little bit, you know, and hopefully we'll set them in the right track, you know, whether it's from drinking or from drugs or just family dynamics, you know. Or even a guy that was going to go hunt and shot himself in the leg, you know? You know, he just needs a little help there to get that bullet out.
He's not feeling very good about that.
It was just, he was in the dark and he just like slipped and shot himself. You know, he was lucky. And, you know, we're there for him. And he was just an incredible guy. He was like 92 years old and like walking and strong and not a single ailment.
Yeah.
Just so
That's how I want to be.
Me too. So yeah, it's very inspiring, especially like a lot of times in Wyoming, I treat or I'm in contact a lot with older people like ranchers and people that lived outside a good bit of their lives. And it's really inspiring to see them, how little they complain, how almost never they complain about pain. You know, they just want very little, demand very little. They just want it as much as possible.
Do you think that, look, I've never been in the hospital.
Hospitals are good places.
No, but I've never been in a hospital as a patient.
Yeah.
I play with Body and Soul, the thing that James Jenkins started. And do you think people feel ashamed of being in the hospital? Do you think people feel shame in there? Because I wonder about that when I see a patient.
I don't think they feel ashamed. I think they feel vulnerable.
Oh, yes, that's a better word.
Very vulnerable, because the minute they walk into a hospital, I was thinking about it the other day. It's like the first thing we do is like strip them of their clothes and put them in gowns, you know? So how vulnerable can you feel? Because the gown is open in the back. And I think some people see that as an adventure. They're more open about it. They don't care. But some people, you really see they're bothered by it. They're upset, you know, all the things that come with it, you know?
Yeah.
And we put them in a gown, we tied an IV on them, you know, all of a sudden they're confined to bed with this IV running their arm, and it can be overwhelming, you know.
Yeah, I can imagine. So I can't recall anybody who I saw in the hospital that wanted to stay there. Like they always want to go home. They do, really. They just don't express it. Those are the people that don't say it to me.
They start making up stuff so they won't go home.
Wow.
They do, yeah. Because I've had people in the hospital, for example, that they were there and they were making up stories because it was in the middle of winter in Wyoming and they didn't have heat at home. They didn't have heat or water. They couldn't afford it. So the hospital is actually a place where they could take a shower. They could be in a warm place, food, you know. So that happens. That happens a lot.
Yeah, I went to jail once. It was like that. Guys wanted to stay in there.
No gangs, though.
No, the guy it was nothing.
And you can use your cell phone in the hospital.
Yeah. But there was a guy next to me, and he was like, I don't even want to go back on the street. I ain't got no place to stay no how. He's like, I'm going to get me some 3 squares and some food and some sleep.
Yeah, like, some people
are...
Some people are pretty happy.
I was like, this is wild. This is so crazy right now. You know, so that's insightful about
But if I may say, like when I was in college, you know, I ended up in the hospital, and it was from like a night that we were playing drinking games, and it wasn't something that I was used to, and it was too much for me. I ended up in the hospital.
Oh, wow.
And I was embarrassed. Yes, I was very, very embarrassed.
Well, because you were embarrassed, though, because you did
of my behavior.
You got there because you were drinking. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it was my behavior. And I am grateful to this day that, I mean, the nurses they reamed me. They completely reamed me. They laid it on me, you know, like, you see what you've done, you know, your responsibility, blah, blah, blah. Because they talk about, a lot of times as a nurse, you wondering, like, how much do you have to be supportive? How much you're just honest with people? You know, how do you treat the person? How do you approach the person? You're always thinking about that, you know, how much support do they need, or how much a dose of reality they need? And these people definitely gave me a dose of reality, and it never happened to me again. That was the last of it.
Yeah.
So,
I knew
I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, I knew you're grateful for the experience of that.
I'm grateful that they talked to me.
Okay, yes,
honest,
that's great.
that they were
Yeah.
honest. Yeah.
Yeah, I knew someone who went to the hospital. He was using drugs, and he was a professional, middle-aged male, using drugs that you wouldn't believe that he was using.
Yeah.
And nobody would know, And he wound up in the hospital, and he told the nurse that he was drinking or he was dehydrated, he was running too much or whatever. I don't know what he told her, but she just called him out on it. She said, "You know what? You need to stop doing X."
Yeah.
She's like, "You need to stop doing that."
Because we get all the labs,
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't matter what people tell us. We have all the labs right in front of us, so we know.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the stories we hear, we just like, okay.
Yeah. So shortly
Whatever.
shortly thereafter, he changed.
Yeah, that's cool.
Shortly thereafter, he completely stopped that and went in a different direction in life.
That's nice to hear. Yeah,
Yes.
it happens.
So part of the reason that I do this podcast is I'm learning why I'm doing this podcast as I'm doing it. But it's just something I wanted to do because I don't do traditional social media like Facebook. It takes too much time, and there's no human interaction. And I need it as an artist. I need to have a social media presence. But I learned that there's so much. I've always known this, that people are so interesting, and there's so many layers to people, and there's so much to people. If we talked for 20 hours, we couldn't cover it all. There's no way. But
I think as South Americans like talking too.
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
Like sitting around philosophizing.
I've tried having
coffee
people.
shops.
Yeah, that's great. I've tried having people on here that don't talk very much, and it's really difficult to have a conversation because I'm like, yeah, and they're like, yeah. So I'll just start talking. And then I notice on here when I get nervous, I just start talking a lot. Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
So I'm saying all that because you're a nurse. What made you get into nursing?
Several reasons.
Because I don't know that much about you, but when our friend in common told me that you're getting into nursing, I was like, what?
I know everybody's
Okay.
like, is she going crazy?
I didn't think that because I know people change their path. And, yeah.
Well, it's funny also as a musician, because I've played cello since I was 11, and I've always been passionate about cello. That was my love. And the funny thing is that when you go to music school, especially when you go to music school, people tell you, oh, you're a musician for life. That's who you are, a musician. That's who defines you. And I found that, you're a person first. I'm a person first. I'm not just a musician. I can do other things. And I actually, when I started going to school,
I feel like that.
Yeah, I started feeling more intelligent when I started learning science. It's like, oh, I actually can do math, or I actually can do chemistry. It's amazing. My brain was working again. But I think what got me into nursing was when I first started, I was always interested, because I had started with my parents and with my sister to do microbiotics, and I saw the difference it made for me, because when I was in college, I ate really poorly. When I was my bachelor's, actually throughout college, bachelor's and master's, I ate like hot dogs, tuna sandwich, and the pizza with the spinach was the healthy pizza, and it was just awful. Coke every day. I could not practice unless I had a Coke with me, which is horrible, So I started getting more into health foods and feeling better stuff. So I was pretty passionate about it, and wanted to learn more about it, and started writing a blog about it, and I was just really passionate about the blog. I wrote almost every day, then just got it established, was always writing, was finding out like local places, local farms, local coffee shops, produce, all those things. In touch with them, like getting them on the blog, interviewing them, all these things. That just felt like it was for me and for the community. I was doing that. And from there, I felt like I needed to learn more, because I felt like just a musician writing about food. And I'm like, I don't have a right almost, because I'm just a musician. What do I know? I don't really have an education on this. And I just started getting more and more interested in that, in health. And so I was like, well, maybe I'll just take a class and see how it feels. So I took one class, and it was funny because the first class I had to take was psychology, which had nothing to do with it. But it felt like, pardon my word, a bullshit class a little bit, but it was interesting. I was like, okay, I like this. So then I took another class and it was math, and that's when I got really into it. And then I started taking chemistry, and then I started taking anatomy, and that's when it's like you really start seeing anatomy and physiology. You start seeing how the body really works, and it's incredible. It's like learning about the universe, but it's inside of us.
Yeah.
And that to me just opened up everything, and I think that's why I became more and more passionate about it. I really, really enjoyed it. As hard as it was, I really enjoyed it. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to keep going with this and see where it goes. And then by the time I saw it had been 2 years, I had finished all my prereqs, and I was like, okay, I'll try school and see, if I like it. And so I got into school, and that was the hardest year of my life.
Oh, wow. I can imagine, right?
It was really, really hard. Nursing
Because
school was no joke.
you were playing the symphony, and
I
then
stopped. I had
you stopped
by
playing
then.
it? Okay.
Yeah. And
So school was full time.
school was full time. I was still
And you have
playing
to
here and there, just a gig
be a
here
parent.
and there. Yeah, I was sharing. We were sharing 50-50, the kids.
Yeah.
So I had the kids, and pretty much one day a week I did not sleep. I felt like I never slept.
Yeah.
Because it was very hard for me. The subjects didn't come easy, especially like pharmacology, just a lot of new English words, a lot of reading in English. It was hard for me. I always felt like I was very, very slow and getting organized. And plus, everything was online. When I went to school, I graduated in 95. We still wrote our papers by hand,
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, everything was online on Blackboard, and you had to figure out the whole system, get organized with that. It took a lot. It took a lot. A lot of
Do you think it's
memorization.
an improvement on the old way of doing education? The Blackboard versus like writing by hand or typewriter or printing it out?
I actually love computers. I think it's great. Makes things much easier. But it's funny that even with that, the way I study was still outlining everything
Yeah.
by hand. There's just something about writing with your hands that makes you remember things.
I hear that.
Yeah.
I hear that, and I know that myself.
Writing, making little pictures, making little diagrams. Yeah. And I would just have papers and papers and papers, and then they get all messed up,
Yeah, that's something that's mysterious to people because they don't know why that is the case. But people keep saying that's the case.
Yeah, a lot of people. People learn in different ways, but for me, definitely writing it, and it was sort of like practicing that. When I would be practicing cello, I would write things in the music and analyze the music outside even from the cello, and just analyze their harmonies, where the music was going, everything, write things down, and that's how I would memorize things.
Yeah.
Because you had to memorize to play a lot of things. You have to play by memory.
Yeah.
So that's how I memorized it, and it was the same in nursing. You just it's not harmonies, but diagrams. Where the blood is going instead.
Yeah.
But that worked. But there was a lot of last minute memorization, and I'm also very grateful for my colleagues in my class. They helped me a lot. People from different backgrounds, but we would get together in study groups, and just by one person explaining to the other, like when you have to explain to the other person, you learn it faster or you understand it better.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah,
we did
it
that a
checks
lot.
you on what you actually know.
Yeah.
Well, I have a few episodes of this podcast, more than a few, that are monologues. And then when I first started doing that, it was when it was time for me to speak out what I was going to say. I realized I don't know what I'm talking about.
I feel like that all the time.
Yeah, because when I would hear myself say it, I was like, wow, this topic is really big. Like, I don't know what I'm talking about here. It's like, I can't just say that. I'm going to have to go back and research it, Yeah. So that's kind of like explaining it to someone. There's a theory called the rubber duck method, where this computer programmer gets a rubber duck. He kind of invented it, where he coined the phrase, and he'll explain it to the rubber duck next to his desk. Like, what this is going to do is, so.
Yeah, I guess, the other thing, the beauty about nursing, what I found is just studying science, is that everything is evidence-based. So it's great to learn that you cannot just state things. You have to, there's a hypothesis and you have to research and prove it, You can't just, stating, you need to research, you have to back up
So do the two of them mix with you, the things that you learned from your mother, your parents, the macrobiotics and these kinds of things, and the teas? You know, and if those things work, like, do you ever wonder like how they came about knowing these things?
You know what is, it's
over
really
the years?
interesting, like, because, you know, I don't know that much about, you know, Eastern medicine, but I know like the concept of yin yang, you know, and for example, from acrobatics or yin yang with food, a lot of it revolves about the balance in the body, and as the balance of acidity in the balance in the body. And a lot of it has to do with phosphorus and calcium. And it's really interesting because I was reading just the other day about dealing with somebody that had kidney problems, kidney disease, and like the balance of minerals in their body is always out of whack, you know, because the kidneys are not filtering things. And a lot of it is calcium and phosphorus. And a lot of, for example, like if you eat stuff that has too much phosphorus, there's too much phosphorus in your blood, your body's going to try to balance that by sucking the calcium out of your bones to put it in the blood. So that's, for example, why soda is so bad for you, because there's too much phosphorus in it. And your body takes the calcium away from your bones to put in your blood to desperately try to balance that. Yeah. And people don't know that. And that's like exactly the yin yang. And it was just interesting that science got to that, you know, something that they had been working on for so long. Yeah. I don't know how they got to it, but they knew somehow that your body needs to be in balance. But and I remember even like in nursing school, one of my teachers, she's a doctorate, and I don't know what, she's just an incredible woman, and she was talking about how the next generation of patients, they're going to be so sick, and so many of them are going to have horrible osteoporosis because of the soda consumption these days. Wow. So it was really interesting to see that science is getting there too.
So I've heard it proposed that soda and sugar should be treated like a drug. Like I agree.
I think it has.
That it should. Well, what I mean is that it should be labeled, like warning, this can cause an excessive consumption or whatever, you know.
Well, excess of anything can cause.
Yeah. Well, you know, that is like a less excess of soda. Like if you drank a soda a day, it would probably be bad. And people drink like 2-liter bottles of soda a day.
People have no idea how bad soda is. And
no, they don't. Sugar, and the soda companies, they don't want them to know. You know.
It's empty calories, you know. But even, I mean, too much of anything, too much protein, too much cheese, too much milk, too much, you know, or if you just eat vegetables, you need everything. You know, we're omnivores.
So I think it's funny how I know some vegans that would argue with you.
I myself like eating everything.
Yeah. Me too.
I don't care for seafood, but other than that, I'll eat anything.
I eat most of the things I consume is nuts and fruits and vegetables. You know?
But I think also there is a case to be made for eating little, not eating too much.
Yeah.
That's very, very important. To me, almost more important than eating the right things, but eating too much.
Why do you say that eating a little bit is more important?
Because when you eat too much, you overwhelm your body, your system. And then I noticed that
you can feel it too right away.
Oh yeah, you feel heavy. You want to go sleep. You know, and it's just taxing the body. It's too much. The body doesn't need that much to operate. You know, and I see that every time we go climbing and we are out climbing for the day, we barely eat anything, and we're just moving. You know, so you really don't eat that much. You know, yes, you do need good meals and good.
Yeah, but we eat
meals.
A lot here. Yeah. People eat a lot of food here.
Especially, I think when you're sitting around, you end up eating more because you're sitting around, so you're not moving, you're getting tired, sleepy, and then you want to eat something to make up for that or wake up, you know, so it's more. And the more you move, like move generates movement, you know, you're going. It's like, it's positive. That's
another thing that people don't do. They don't move very much. So many people like go look downtown and all the buildings everywhere. People are just sitting at their desk, you know, stagnant.
And that's why I guess part of why I moved out west and why I like living in the mountains, because I want to be there. I love moving. You moved to Montana? No, you moved to
Wyoming. Wyoming.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen photographs of Wyoming. It's beautiful.
Yeah,
I can see why you moved there.
And it's inspiring. It inspires you to go there.
There's a lot of horses there?
There's a lot of horses, yeah. Actually, they say, there's so much antelope in Wyoming that they say there's more antelope than people in Wyoming.
Oh, wow.
That's what we say.
And I wonder if there is. It's true.
It's true.
Wow. That would be so great to live in a place like that. I've never lived in a place like that.
I like it. I think it's beauty, so much beauty. It's inspiring. inspires you to get outside. You know, you don't have to. I mean, I see just with the rangers, you know, or people like normal people getting on their horses and or going hunting. You know, you don't.
So you learned about Wyoming through climbing.
Through climbing, and also by playing in the first time I saw Wyoming, it wasn't even through climbing, came after Wyoming.
Okay.
I first went to Wyoming to play in the orchestra there, the Grand Teton Music Festival. So that's when I first went to Wyoming in 1998, and I just fell in love with Wyoming, and I vowed like I wanted to move there one day. And I remember like my son was a year old. It was like 15 years ago. I vowed that I wanted to live there, that I would go live there no matter what. So the line was not straight. It was kind of like this.
Yeah.
But I ended up there somehow.
So there's places to climb in Wyoming.
Oh,
mountains.
yeah. But that's the thing. Like it was first when I started going to the festival there that
that was with the
happened.
Symphony?
Yeah, with the Symphony, the festival. So it's just in the summer. So I would go there. And I had never hiked in my life before. I was a total city girl, smoked, you know, you know, the musician stereotype, you know, like intellectual
smoking outside with your cello in the case,
but,
leaning on it, talking on the phone.
You know, anxiety, all this stuff. So I started like hiking and just started finding the beauty there and started hiking more and more and more, longer distances, started going by myself, started doing passes. And then I finally asked this climber like to teach me self-arrest skills for the snow so I wouldn't, you know, fall to my death.
Oh, yeah.
So I actually ended up going to this class lesson with my son, Miles. He was like 10. And we went together and we both learned self-arrest. And this guy was like, well, okay, now we're going to do a snow climb. And I was terrified, like just terrified. And Miles was like, oh, come on, Mom, you know, you're going too slow. So we did it. And after that, I was like, well, you know, I wasn't so into the snow, but maybe how would it be in rock, you know? So he's like, I'll take you rock climbing. And it was instant. Like
because Miles did that? He would do rock climbing?
He started with me.
Yeah,
we both started at the same time. Yeah.
Okay. So, you know, what's interesting about, one of the things that's interesting about what you're telling me is that, you know what you're doing and why you're doing it. And a lot of people don't know that. Like for example, what I mean is the progression of how you came to decisions about things is clear to you.
It may not have been that clear at the time.
Oh, at the time? Okay.
Sometimes you really feel like you're in the dark.
Okay,
You know, total dark.
Do you like that feeling?
Really,
Does that bother you? No?
I don't like that feeling. It's terrifying, but you got to trust. You just got to trust that you'll find your way. You know, like when I was in nursing school, it was terrifying because it was like, what if I don't like this?
Yeah,
you know,
wow.
I can't.
That is terrifying.
It was, or even just moving. I knew I wanted to move to Wyoming. And I'm like, sometimes you're like, what am I doing here? You know, where am I? Where did I end up? You know, but you just got to trust your gut and do what you love doing, because if it doesn't work, then you can just change. It's like a friend of mine. I was like, when I started doing, she had convinced me to do triathlons. I'm going to say her name, Roberta. Roberta Nader Koopman. I was terrified the very first one that I did. And she's like, look, Sofia, swim to one cone, then to the next one, then to the next one. Just worry about one cone at a time, not the whole thing. You don't have to accomplish the whole thing. And she's like, and you can just stop. Like, you know, or she would say like, try this, try it for a week. If it doesn't work, you know, or just try it, give it a try.
You're like, no, I can't stop.
You got to try. If you don't try, you're never going to know.
Yeah.
You got to try. And if it doesn't work, then you change your course, you know.
So I played a gig at a triathlon. I played music at a triathlon. They were hiring me for several of them out here. And I was amazed that there was this whole other community of people, and they hang out with each other, and they know each other, and they have their own pecking order. That's that guy. Oh, this is this guy, or those are those twins. And they go to every triathlon.
The twins, I know the twins.
Right, you know the twins, okay?
Yeah.
They're like celebrities over there. It's like, oh, the twins.
It's the same in climbing too. There's a climbing community, you know, they're all friends.
So climbing, you see there's so much to you. It's amazing. So
just things I like
people
doing.
are so interesting, you know, and like climbing is one of the things that probably never do. Like me climbing. And when people go climbing, I'm like, what are you doing? I'm like, why are you going climbing the mountain? Like, there's so many other things you can do. And it's always, it has to be like a personal thing, I'm sure. Like, it's not like a relationship with a mountain or anything, because the mountain doesn't know you, you know. And I think that, yeah, why do you climb?
Well, first of all,
I've never asked that to a climber before.
Well, I'm not a climber, like, you know, professional climber. I do it because I love, but I'm not, you know. I could say I was or maybe still am, I don't know, a professional cellist, you know, being a professional cellist for most of my life. Now I work as a nurse. I climb because I love climbing. I run because I love running. I don't run fast. I'm not the best climber. But I climb because I love being in the mountains, first of all. Even just the hikes to get there. There's a connection to nature, connection to the mountains. And even just, also even the people you go with, the connection. It's like we're talking when you're climbing, you're one-on-one with a person all day. You know, you just climb some, you talk some about life, relationships, all kinds of things. You're just hanging with the person. And sometimes, or a lot of times, you don't even really have to talk. You're just present there, you know. But also just the climbing itself, it's like, as a musician, to me, it's amazing. It's just like figuring out the notes, figuring out the holds, it's like playing chess, kind of like, you know, it's going to go somewhere. It's just a matter of unlocking, you know, figuring out where it goes, the route. And a friend of mine that I learned a lot with this year, he was always telling me, he's like, read the route, you know, just read where it's going.
Yeah.
So learning to read the route, or
so how do you not get lost when you're going up the mountain? You're supposed to get to the peak. That's the kind of the
I get
point,
lost
right?
all the time.
Yeah. So how do you know?
But there's mountaineering and there's technical climbing. There's different kinds of climbing.
Okay.
I mean, you can mountaineer.
Mountaineering is the going to the peak?
Mountaineering is going into mountains.
Okay.
And it can be on a trail or without a trail, and a lot of times you're going after a peak. You know.
So I'm sure you've seen the Mount Everest. I think that's the right mountain, Mount Everest, where there's a bunch of bodies everywhere.
I haven't been there.
No. But I'm saying you've seen that. You've read about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a website where you can virtually climb Mount Everest. And then you pass all these things and you're like, whoa, if I was climbing that, like, it would just be so...
There's a reality.
What a weird feeling that would be. You're climbing and you see this person there.
Yeah.
You know, or there used to be a person. Yeah. And there's been other situations that I heard of on these big climbs, these high peaks like that, where the people have to leave somebody.
Yeah.
It's rare. It doesn't happen very often, but like there was an avalanche and they all got huddled in this cage.
I've never been in situations like that. I don't climb, you know, like, I guess you're talking about really high peaks, you know, like 20,000 feet.
But I'm saying where you climb, if you fall, it's like, no more Sofia.
Well, when you go climbing,
I would wear a parachute.
Really, I don't climb that high, but you do take. I'm very careful about who I let belay me. Like I'm very careful. I'm very picky about my partners. Who I let belay me. Who I go with. You really want to go with somebody that knows what they're doing. And like whether it's technical, I would hope so. You know, yeah. I mean, if it's technical, you want to know that your belayer is responsible, that they know what they're doing, they know what to look for. Or for example, if you're mountaineering and going with a friend, you need to know that they're fit. Like I have offended people before. Like I wanted to go somewhere and they wanted to go with me out, and I'm like, no, you're not. Because if they're not fit enough, they're gonna. What happens is they'll get sick. You know, they'll start throwing up. They start getting headaches or dehydration, whatever it is, and then you're responsible for them. And I'm not a guide, you know, I'm not at that level of fitness that I could carry somebody out of the mountain or rescue them.
Yeah, wow.
So you have to be responsible for yourself and know what you can do, know how far you can go, or your skills. Like if you're going to go into the snow, do you know how to self-arrest? Do you know how to use an ice axe? Do you know how to use crampons for snow and ice? Things like that. So you really have to be true. You know, there's no bullshit. You got to know what you're doing, because it very, very easily you can turn into a nightmare.
Oh yeah, it's a very real thing. It's
because of weather. The higher you get, also the more exposure there is. So any fall you take is not just a fall; it's a fall into the abyss, or also the weather. The weather is, it gets higher. The weather is just more.
The atmosphere thins, right? The atmosphere gets
less
thinner.
oxygen.
Yeah.
And the weather is just more, I forgot the word, more intense,
Yeah. That's what you meant to say, more intense, or it's colder for sure.
It's colder, the wind is stronger. Like, for example, if it's going to rain, like, for example, when we were up high, like 13,000 feet, if it doesn't rain, it snows, but even if it rains or snow and you're in rock, the rock becomes slippery, or you get cold, and you can get very, very cold very easily, or if you get wet and cold, or wet, cold, hungry.
Yeah.
So, and you start kind of losing it, and you have to be attentive. So easy to slip, easy to trip over if you don't pay attention.
So, do you think everybody has all the climbers? Do you think they have a reason in common that they climb, or everybody climbs for a different reason? Because when you think about it, and the things to do, like in relation to other things to do in life, right? It's kind of like a wild thing to do out there. Like, it's like,
people think it's wild, but
but the people, I mean, like the people who decided to do something that they could probably not come back from it, like Everest. Because when I think of climbing, of course, that's all over the media and like the History Channel or whatever.
Yeah, but media part, I think people do it because they're in awe with the mountains, and they just fall in love with the mountains.
Yeah, they're beautiful.
And it's just the love, just
I like to live them from right here.
The beauty and wanting to go to the top of the mountain and see the view. I think that's how it has a lot to do with. And also a lot of people climb, I think, for the same reason that people run, or that I run, is just for my sanity, like I need a reason to live, or it makes me happy. It makes me whole.
I think people, more people need to be more active, but their work doesn't allow it. So many of our acts don't allow it. Our cars, this is why I don't drive very much. I bicycle as much as possible, And I feel at one point, before my daughter was born a couple years ago, I felt like I could bicycle across the country.
Yeah.
You just feel like you can do it. You can do this, and it's a great feeling, Yeah. And the happiness factor, I completely empathize with you. I know
it's
what
the
you're
feeling
talking
of
about.
freedom. Yeah.
Well, you get inspiration, and you have oxygen flowing through your body, and you're moving, and then your stresses just fall away.
Yeah, and also I guess the sense of accomplishment, especially if it's something that is hard and you work really hard at it. Like, for example, a route that you cannot get for a while, and you work and either finally figure it out mentally or technically, or you become stronger to be able to get it. And it feels amazing. It really is the sense of accomplishment.
Do you still play the cello?
Yeah. I was just playing this weekend.
Okay, cool. So you played in the symphony for how long?
The Jacksonville Symphony?
Yeah.
I played 15
years. Or no,
years
overall, like symphonies.
I've been playing, since I was 11, I've been playing in symphonies. Like in Sao Paulo, I used to play in the Sao Paulo Youth Orchestra. That was my first job, because they actually, in Latin America, in Brazil, is different system than here. So the youth orchestra was the orchestra that went up until 18, but it was, no, past 18. It was like the pre-professional, but it was like a junior league orchestra, but they paid. So I've been working since I was 11. Yeah. I don't know what happened to that money, but yeah, I've been playing in orchestra since I was 11. I love it. I've always loved orchestra music.
Who took the money? I'm just kidding. Your parents did. Your parents. So, I'm going to tell you, and I hope you don't get offended. Like when I met you, I didn't meet you, but I went to the symphony, and then you see all the players come out, and then I'm there with a couple of my friends, and I've been to the symphony many times, and I've been with different people, and you walk out, all the players walk out, and you walk out with them, and you sit down. And then, like, almost every time that I go on the symphony, people are like, "Look at that one."
It's funny. It's just the white hair. That's all.
No, but like people are very attracted to you. Like,
That's funny.
And but yeah, your hair stands out because it's premature, like
white.
Yeah. And it's dope hair. It's just great hair.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
So do your kids?
So the worry.
Yeah. Did the symphony Did you feel that way? Like the way people felt about you in the symphony? Were you even aware of that? That you stuck out in a positive way in the symphony?
I was aware that I stood out, yes. And
Yeah.
actually, I'm going to tell you, I was fired from the symphony because I went against the grain a lot. I really did.
Yeah.
I really did because the symphony here, a lot of the players, they're very much into the union and they're very much into protection, and not artistry at all.
Okay.
And the level was very mediocre, very, very mediocre, starting with the concertmaster. And I fought that and I went against that, and it was not viewed very positively.
Yeah.
You know? But you just move on, you know.
Yeah. So the players in the symphony, like, so you don't have to be.
But not all symphonies are like that.
Yeah, but you don't have to be a phenomenal player in a symphony. You know, because most of the listeners, I think most of the listeners, they won't know. I don't think.
Well,
they'll
because
know,
because we're strings, we get all blend in. You know,
Okay,
if you're
yeah.
a woodwind player or a brass player or a timpanist or percussionist, then you really stand out and you have to be really good. But it's easier for string players to. We can mess up here and there and they don't hear, you know. But that's the thing. Your stand partner hears it. If you don't play up to 100%, your stand partner hears it.
Yeah.
But that's the crazy thing about playing a symphony, that, or at least this one, that if you don't do your best, people don't call you on it. There's no checks and balance. Like if you don't do your best in the hospital, you're going to know.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Immediately.
Yeah.
You know, so there is.
So you're not
motivation.
sharpening each other, like.
No, like when you
Yeah.
play to me music, like when you're playing in small groups, and it's not criticism, you know, you're like talking to each other. How can we make this better? How can this sound better? Let's try this together. You know, let's hone this down. Let's refine this. In the symphony, it's like, it seems like it's just work. You know, it's not, it seems like a lot of the artistry is gone. And again, it's not all symphonies like that, and it's not all players like that, because there are plenty of incredible players. And that's why, for example, I love playing Grand Teton Music Festival. They're just great players, and it's very, very inspiring. But it's frustrating when you play with people that that's not what they. Maybe that is what they want to achieve, but they can only go a certain way. You know, so much. But it's frustrating that you cannot tell somebody if they're out of tune or out of rhythm, that you cannot tell them, and you have to put up with it.
I think
And
part
pretend that it's not happening.
Yeah, that's hard. That's hard.
Really hard.
Yeah. I think that part of that, what's happened there is a thing that is citywide here. Like like the city breeds that here. I noticed that. Like not to be mean to the city or people in it, but it breeds mediocrity. It accepts it. It allows it. Because like in the artist world, in the visual artist world, when I first moved here, people will talk about this person and they talk about that person. I'd go see their visual art. I'm like, it's okay. It didn't move me deeply or anything like that. I've passed by paintings where it stops me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God, what is that? I just can't even I can't even keep walking, you know? And, but I think that it's a citywide thing. I have one question about you. I've never asked this to a string player either. I have a cello behind you actually, but it's backwards.
Oh, that's right.
It's lefty. It's a lefty. Yeah, it's hard to play, but I get it done. And but you know,
have a hard time playing that.
yeah, when people play in the symphony, I notice the vibrato and the strings is immense. Like you guys are going like.
Yeah, you really have to practice that from when you're young.
Okay, why do you do that though? Is it vibrato or it's not? It's not vibrato.
It's vibrato, and it's just like the singers. It's just to carry. It carries the sound, the tone, the vibration carries the. It's just a way of carrying your voice. It's just like singing, you know. And you employ your vibrato to carry over in different feelings, different sentiments. Because the vibrato can be wide, narrow, fast, slow, you know, or no vibrato at all. You're creating effects in different colors.
But you don't hear it.
You do.
Like
you do.
You do. Like when I'm in the audience, I don't hear the vibrato, all the strings together. It sounds like one note.
But if you go, for example, to a Baroque orchestra where they're playing explicitly without vibrato, you can hear it's just like a flat sound kind of.
Yeah, that's
just
right.
different tone.
That's right. I just thought about that right now. Okay.
So it's just different ways of producing color, creating color.
So are you dating anybody right now? Are you single? The guys must be crazy about you. People, You know, your kids think you're cool.
I don't know.
Yeah. If they don't, I'll talk to them.
My kids make me very humble for sure.
Yeah, they do.
Yes, they remind me of that every day.
I don't look forward to that. That's like,
just wait, 13.
Yeah, no. So you've enjoyed? Have you enjoyed most of your experience in the symphony? Can I tell you something really quick? Like I've been in the back in the green room a couple times, and I saw that I suspected, because I don't know for sure, I suspected there was these cliques in the symphony, and they're hanging out, and then I would walk past different people, and somebody would be talking smack about such and such playing and whatnot.
And just talk.
And then this other person told me that person's not even a good player. And it's, you know,
yeah.
And it seemed like the people who were the better players were more humble and more.
They don't talk; they just play.
Yeah. It seemed.
That's why I shouldn't talk at all.
Yeah, but I'm saying. So there was a lot of politics, maybe.
There's
in
a lot
symphony
of
playing.
politics.
Is it that way through most symphonies?
I cannot speak for other
so many
orchestras,
people together.
But I think it depends on the orchestra. I think it depends a lot on the leadership. Because the leadership sort of, you know, trickles down the inspiration and for example, all I can speak for is Grand Teton Music Festival. We work with Donald Runnicles, and
where is that Grand Teton?
It's in the Tetons. It's in Jackson Hole, Wyoming.
Okay. Yeah.
So there's the Grand Teton National Park, and the festival happens in the village, which is right next to the park. So that festival has been going on for a long time, I think about 40 or 50 years. But the conductor now is Donald Runnicles, and he is amazing. He's an incredible person to play for, very inspiring, and he's very respectful of the musicians.
Yeah.
So when you work with him, he really brings out, like, it's just, he'll say a few words about the music, about the piece, and you see it, you know?
Yeah.
And you want to convey that. And that's what it's like, you're transcending your abilities, yourself, to come together and make this music. And that's, I think, what's incredible orchestra, when everybody comes together for that.
Yeah.
And instead of this place that is stuck in a rut within all these politics and people backbiting and things like that. You know, I remember people used to complain all the time about how I looked on stage. All the time. I used to get fined for everything.
What?
I was fined about my necklaces. I was fined for low
Your
cleavage, my hair. I mean, you just name it. I was fined. I got so sick of it.
Yeah. I can imagine
so
that would
like,
be
why,
incredibly
you know,
frustrating. Yeah.
Why? Like, just things like that.
Yeah.
Backbiting and the frustration of just the music not sounding great, and they demanding, like, for example, we used to have two rehearsals a day. It used to be 2.5 rehearsals, and they were complaining that was too much time for the musicians, that we had to have, one of the rehearsals had to be 2 hours because the other one was 2.5 hours, because, oh my God, they were working too hard.
Yeah.
And now I work 12-hour shifts. It's like,
yeah, wow.
What, you know, it's just,
Yeah, if you're focused, 2 hours just goes by.
you need at least 2 hours, you
Yeah.
know, and I would say, like, sometimes you need way more than that, you know, or
Yeah.
a sectional or something like that. But it was all about musicians' rights and what. And
Yeah, let's not talk about
I'm
that.
not. I am ultra liberal. It's not like I'm
Yeah.
against union or anything like that.
Yeah.
But you're talking about art, and you're talking about quality, and that comes first, you know. And you do what needs to be done. It's like when you practice, you don't tell yourself, "Oh, I only practice 1 hour a day because of my rights." You know,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
practice until you get it right, and if you don't get it right, you go back to it until you get it.
Yeah.
And if you still can't get it, go and ask somebody. You know, it's quality. So. It takes, what they say, 10,000 hours. You know, it takes work.
Yeah.
And if they're not willing to put in the work, you know, I don't know. All I know is, like, at one point I just had to walk away from it.
Yeah.
And I'm happier for it than not have to deal with that.
Yeah.
And I'm really happy and feel very, very, very lucky to discover that I can actually work somewhere that I actually enjoy working.
There's probably some people
with a boss that I really like.
There's probably some people in the symphony that are like, man, I wish I could do that. Just leave, like, just walk.
I felt like that for a long time. I used to sit there thinking, like, well, maybe I can drive a truck, or maybe, you know, because I felt like that's the other thing I figured out very quickly, that I had no skills. I was like a manual laborer.
Yeah,
because
wow.
all work is just manual. We learn how to do this, vibrato, and it's all manual. So when we had the shutdown, like years ago, because, you know, the city didn't have money. People were, you know, the whole housing turnover, everything. With the shutdown, we were locked out for half a year. And I remember trying to figure out what can I do? And it seemed like there was nothing I could do but maybe waitress, because I didn't have any computer skills, Excel, nothing.
Did you do that? Did you waitress?
No, I didn't.
I can't picture you waitressing.
I started practicing, taking auditions.
So look, but by telling from your personality, if you decided to be a waitress, you would be like the most badass waitress.
I don't know. They do say like for waitressing is good for nursing because you learn to deal with a lot of people. You know, for nursing, for doctors, for physical therapists, because you learn to deal with a lot of people at the same time.
Different personalities too.
Yes, yeah.
Oh yeah.
But
you know, you're a very inspiring person. You really are. And
just
if you ever, whenever you're in town, if you ever want to update me and other people who care, that would be great.
Okay,
you know?
thank you.
And I could talk to you for a long time. I want to ask you more things about mountain climbing and music and whatnot and nursing, but I have to go pick up my daughter.
I understand. I got my kids too.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
All right.
It's very good to see you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
You're welcome. Hey, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.
Sophia, stop thanking me. You're awesome.